The engine's off and his hand is already out, flat, waiting. Hand me your keys, mate. You look down at them sitting in your palm, the car key, the house key, the little tag your daughter picked out, and you do the polite thing because what else is there? That handover takes 2 seconds. Getting them back can take a doctor. Section 148. I lets the officer hold those keys until a medical practitioner, who cannot be the person asking, tells him you are not under the influence. But here's what he's counting on you not knowing. Under section 148E, before he takes anything, you're entitled to ask for a breath test. And until you've had it, he can't act. One line in the right 2 seconds and you drive home tonight. Almost nobody says it. They hand the keys over, then watch their own car get locked. It sounds like he's asking. He isn't. There's a whole division of the Road Transport Act 2013 built for this exact moment. Division 3 of Part 5.5. And the heading in the Act itself reads, Powers to prevent intoxicated drivers from driving. Under Section 148E, if an officer forms the opinion that you're under the influence and driving or about to drive, he can prohibit you from driving, require you to immediately hand over all ignition or other keys in your actual possession, and have your car immobilised where it sits, or removed to a place of safety and kept there. This power isn't new. It was born on the 14th of April 1998. The Traffic Amendment, Confiscation of Keys and Driving Prevention Act, Section 26A of the Old Traffic Act. Nearly 3 decades on the books, and the counter-right buried inside it has been sitting there the whole time too, almost never read out loud. Now look at the trigger, because it's the whole game. His opinion, not a reading, not a failed test, not a charge. An impression formed at a car window at night about a person he met 90 seconds ago. And an impression is the one kind of evidence you can still do something about while he's forming it. So what does the polite handover actually cost you? More than tonight. The keys are warm in your closed hand. Here's the ladder you're standing on. You hand them over to be agreeable. The car gets immobilised where it stands. And getting it back needs a person the officer is satisfied can properly control it, or a doctor's word, and the one word the Act rules out is yours. The thing you needed at 6 tomorrow morning is on a highway shoulder with your house key in a property bag. So here's my promise. One sentence, written into the Act itself, said before the keys leave your hand. And I have to be straight with you before we go a step further. This sentence works in New South Wales. I checked every other state and territory, and none of them has this entitlement. Victoria and Queensland run different machinery. I'll show you what they do instead, because honestly, it's worse. One more warning, and it's the T's I'll pay in full later. There are 3 situations where this sentence does nothing at all, including one where saying it means you've just handed them the evidence. Quick word on what this is. Plain English Australian law, checked against the Act and its history back to 1998. Every section number in the description. I'd rather you check me than trust me. And the officer using this power is usually trying to stop someone dying tonight. That's real. It's also why the trigger sits deliberately low and why it catches sober people. For the sentence, the wall. What you cannot refuse. 5 musts in order before anything you're allowed to push back on. 1. You must take any lawful breath or saliva test. Refusing the evidentiary breath analysis in New South Wales runs to $3,300, 18 months in prison, and an automatic 3-year disqualification on a first offence, the same range as high-range drink driving. 2. You must produce your licence and give your name and home address, section 175. 3. You must obey a lawful prohibition on driving. Contravening a Division 3 prohibition or requirement, driving after he's banned you, or obstructing him taking the keys is its own offence under section 148J. 4. And this is the one that kills the clever plan. Physically holding on to the keys achieves nothing. Where police are seizing a vehicle, Section 241 lets them remove, dismantle, or neutralise the lock and start the car by other means if the keys aren't surrendered. Gripping the ring just adds a charge to a car that gets opened anyway. 5. The 48-hour rule. Since the 2018 Road Safety Amendments, an officer who arrests you after a failed or refused sobriety assessment can prohibit you from driving for 48 hours flat. And no, there are no magic words. Nobody's travelling rather than driving. No card in your wallet switches off Part 5.5. That's a second charge, not a defence. Everything past that wall is where the sentence lives. Here's how the encounter gets there. You're right to drive, mate. You seem a bit off. That's not concern. That's the opinion being built out loud in front of you. And the opinion is the whole power. Every answer is a brick in it. How long you take to find the license, the smell in the cabin, whether your words run together at 11 at night, 14 hours into your day. And here's the tell almost everyone misses. Big day. Knackered. Shucks, long shift. The harmless answers are the dangerous ones because they describe impairment without ever mentioning alcohol. You've just co-signed his impression in your own voice. Now, what nobody tells you, none of this commentary is compellable. The license is Section 175. That's the law. Your self-assessment isn't in any section of any act. And under Section 89 of the Evidence Act 1995, declining to chat can't be held against you. No unfavourable inference. That's not a loophole. That's the ordinary law of this country. So the wrong response is the friendliest one there is. Yeah, dead on my feet, mate. 5 words. That's the opinion, formed, signed in your own voice at your own window. And follow the chain because it's short. The moment the opinion exists, Section 148E(1) is live. The prohibition, the keys, the immobilisation, the tow. All of it now sits one sentence away from happening. All of it now sits one sentence away from happening. Because once the opinion is formed, the hand comes out. And what that hand costs is the part nobody ever reads. Hand me your keys. What people picture is a lift home and the car back at breakfast. Read that twice. You cannot vouch for yourself. Your own word is the one the section rules out. And the officer is either satisfied that person can properly control the vehicle, or he's told by a medical practitioner who cannot be the person making the request that the requester isn't under the influence. Read that twice. You cannot vouch for yourself. Your own word is the one the section rules out. And if the keys or the car aren't returned within 24 hours of a request, your remedy is an application to the local court. A court for your own keys. Notice what else travels. The section says all ignition or other keys in your actual possession, the whole ring. The house key goes wherever the car key goes. There is a limit, and I'll give it to you straight. Subsection 4 says the power doesn't authorise confiscation or detention for any longer than necessary in the circumstances. That's real. It's also soft, and it gets argued later in daylight, not tonight on the shoulder. So the wrong response here is the shrug, handing them over on the assumption this all resolves itself by morning. It might. The Act doesn't require it to. Which brings us to the subsection that's been sitting in this legislation since 1998, waiting for somebody to read it out loud at the right moment. Here's the 2-second gap before the keys leave your hand. And here's what the law puts inside it. Section 148E, subsection 2. Section 148E, subsection 2. If the officer's opinion is that you're under the influence of alcohol, you are entitled to request that you undergo a breath test to determine whether or not you are. and then the sentence that changes the night. If such a request is made, the police officer may not take any action under subsection 1 until the person undergoes the breath test. Plain English. No keys, no immobilising, no tow. Suspended by your request until you've blown. Now, I know exactly how strange this sounds because it reverses every video I've made. I've told you never to volunteer, never to invite the machinery. This is the one moment in Australian law where that flips, because the machine that usually works against you is the only thing on that roadside that can demolish an opinion built on how tired you look. He watches the screen, then you, then the road behind you. Righto, straight home. And the keys never left your hand. The exception, stated honestly, subsection 3. If he reasonably suspects you're likely to abscond before the test, he can act anyway. The entitlement assumes you're standing still. So stand still. Section 148E, subsection 2. If the officer's opinion is that you're under the influence of alcohol, Division 3 has a second corridor and the entitlement isn't in it. Section 148EA lets police take the keys after you fail or refuse a sobriety assessment. Section 148G does the same after a failed or refused oral fluid test. Walk down either of those corridors and there is no test you can demand, no suspension of the power, nothing to invoke. The breath test right belongs to the alcohol corridor alone, and that matters at the window because a zero blow doesn't necessarily end the night. And then the sentence that changes the night. If such a request is made, the police officer may not take any action under subsection 1 until the person undergoes the breath test. Here's the detail that tells you how the Act thinks. Under section 148I, keys taken under the alcohol power can be requested back by any person, including you, once you're sober. Keys taken under the drug power, section 148G, can be requested by any person other than you. The legislation itself trusts the drug-tested driver less, and it says so in the return conditions. So the wrong response is quoting subsection 2 at an officer holding a saliva result. Wrong corridor, wrong section. And now you're a man reciting a script instead of a man cooperating, which is why the fork question coming in a few minutes. Which power are you using? Isn't politeness. It's navigation. And if you learned your rights from overseas videos, here's the part that'll surprise you. Neither of those countries even has this fight. The video you watched last week was American or British. So here's the strange part. Britain has no standalone power to take a driver's keys at all. Over there, keys travel with an arrest or a vehicle seizure, and stopping an imminent drunk drive leans on breach of the peace powers, improvised, not legislated. New South Wales did what the UK never did. It wrote the exact power into statute and then wrote a driver's counter right inside it. You carry more exposure here and one better tool. You carry more exposure here and one better tool. You carry more exposure here and one better tool. Now the borders, because this is where the map matters. Cross into Victoria and the answer gets colder. Since the 1st of August 2015, blow 0.10 or higher and police can seize the car itself. 30 days, first offence, and it doesn't matter who owns it. Queensland can convict you for merely being in charge of a vehicle while over the limit. People have lost licences asleep in the driver's seat with the radio on. The sentence in this video is a New South Wales key. Don't carry it across a border and expect it to turn. And understand the frame you're standing in tonight. Argue. And the notebook reads agitated, uncooperative. The only move that feeds neither is the one that produces a number. The only move that feeds neither is the one that produces a number. We're one chapter from the words. And the reason they work is that they don't refuse anything. They trigger something. Here it is. His hand is flat. The keys are in your palm. 2 seconds left. You say this calmly once. Officer, before you take anything, I'm requesting a breath test under section 148E. I'm entitled to one before you act. Again, slower. Officer, before you take anything, I'm requesting a breath test under section 148E. I'm entitled to one before you act. Officer, before you take anything, I'm requesting a breath test under section 148E. I'm entitled to one before you act. Screenshot that. Say it out loud once tonight in your own driveway. So it's memory, not something you're assembling under a torch with a hand held out in front of you. Which is why the fork question coming in a few minutes, which power are you using, isn't politeness, it's navigation. Said after the handover, it's a favour you're asking. Said before, it's the law. I'm requesting a breath test, the exact opposite of refusal. You're volunteering for the most objective instrument on that roadside, which is why it can't be written up as obstruction. Under section 148E, the number matters more here than anywhere on this channel. It tells him you know this is a statutory entitlement, not a negotiation, and it goes into his notebook with your name attached. I'm entitled to one before you act. That's subsection 2, almost word for word. May not take any action until the person undergoes the breath test. Then one condition, and it's yours to keep. Stand still. The entitlement dies the moment he reasonably suspects you'll bolt. Then one condition, and it's yours to keep. Stand still. The entitlement dies the moment he reasonably suspects you'll bolt. That's the third time you've heard them now, which was the whole point. By the time you need them, they're muscle memory, not composition. Officer, before you take anything, I'm requesting a breath test under section 148E. I'm entitled to one before you act. Subscribe. For the 2 seconds before someone you love hands over a ring of keys they won't see for a week. Second push, sharper. You're not in a position to be making requests. You are. The Act put you in that position in 1998, and it hasn't taken you out of it since. Same words. That's the third time you've heard them now, which was the whole point. By the time you need them, they're muscle memory, not composition. Back at the window, the flat hand lowers, empty. Your fingers close over the ring. The car key, the house key, the little tag. Officer, before you take anything, I'm requesting a breath test under section 148E. I'm entitled to one before you act. The unit goes back on his belt, the 0 still on its screen. Headlights slide past. The engine turns over. Put it together, and the hand goes down empty. Notice what wasn't in any of that. No refusal, no argument, no recitation of rights at a man trying to do a job. Just a driver who asked for the one test that could settle it and let it settle it. But there's a fork past this point, and one arm of it is the tease I've owed you since the start. The place where saying this sentence is the worst thing you can do. But there's a fork past this point, and one arm of it is the tease I've owed you since the start. The place where saying this sentence is the worst thing you can do. One question sorts the whole night. Officer, what power are you taking them under? Because the sentence only bites on section 148E. If this is an immediate license suspension under section 224, where the appeal needs exceptional circumstances under section 268(5), and lodging it doesn't pause a thing. The sentence does nothing. 1. The drug corridor. Sections 148EA and 148G carry no entitlement. Saliva result on the screen. Sentence dead. 1. The drug corridor. Sections 148EA and 148G carry no entitlement. Saliva result on the screen, sentence dead. 2. The absconding read, subsection 3. Look like you're leaving and he acts immediately. You give the sentence back. Unchanged. Same flat tone. 3, and it's the big one. You, if you've actually been drinking. Request the test with alcohol in your blood, and you have just manufactured the evidence for a PCA charge on the record, at your own insistence. This sentence belongs to the sober driver copying a wrong impression. If you've been drinking, the honest advice is 4 words. Hand the keys over. That power exists because people die on these roads. Let it work. If you've been drinking, the honest advice is 4 words. Hand the keys over. That power exists because people die on these roads. Let it work. And take the house key off the ring tonight. 30 seconds, and it solves a genuinely awful problem. The keys, the doctor rule, the drug corridor, and the one subsection that holds them all off. It's in my book, Know Your Rights, linked below, for the night you weren't expecting. Put it together, and the hand goes down empty. The keys, the doctor rule, the drug corridor, and the one subsection that holds them all off. It's in my book, Know Your Rights, linked below, for the night you weren't expecting. Let's put it together. Officer, before you take anything, I'm requesting a breath test under section 148E. I'm entitled to one before you act. 4 conditions always. New South Wales only. Alcohol only, before the handover only, and only if you're sober. This is general information, not legal advice, and it's the most state-specific video on this channel. If the car's already gone, write down the time, the name, and the section, then ring a lawyer in the morning. Legal aid exists in every state. Subscribe. For the 2 seconds before someone you love hands over a ring of keys they won't see for a week. But if they take the car instead of the keys, plates off, 3 months, a tow you pay for, that's a different power with a different clock, and almost nobody appeals inside it. That video's on your screen now. But if they take the car instead of the keys, plates off, 3 months, a tow you pay for, that's a different power with a different clock, and almost nobody appeals inside it. That video's on your screen now. The unit goes back on his belt. The 0 still on its screen. Headlights slide past. The engine turns over. And later, your own front door opens with the key that never left your hand. 4 conditions, always. New South Wales only, alcohol only, before the handover only, and only if you're sober.